Greetings, everyone. I'm Hasna Salsabila Prameswari. My presentation today is dedicated to one of my favorite movies. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway. I aim to address the intercultural communication, conflict, and misunderstanding that revolved around Mrs. Debika Chatterjee, our main character, while she was living in Norway. So, the first thing I would like to talk about is the movie's entire plot. Next, I will highlight the conflicts, then we move to my analysis about it, and the last one is about my opinion or view on how I want the problem to be solved. This movie follows Debika Chatterjee, an Indian immigrant mother who lives in Stavanger, Norway, with her husband and her two children. One day, two Norwegian child welfare services, Velfred, employees suddenly visited their home to check on Chatterjee's well-being. They review them in 10 weeks and then take soup and sushi during the last visit without the parents' consent. The Chatterjees are told that they are unfit to hold custody of their children, so Debika decides to win back custody of her children. Soon, Debika learns that the Child Welfare Service is a scam to extort immigrants. How she overcomes legal hurdles and reunites with her children with the help of the Indian government forms the rest of the story. After we know about the plot, let's move to the analysis. Here, I will use the Hofstede value dimension to identify the conflict. First, take a look again at the list of Mr. and Mrs. Chatterjee's charges. As we can see, some of the charges are kind of odd. Talking about charge number 2 and 3, Norway claims that parents who sleep with their children and hand-fed their children are an act of bad parenting. This is definitely an intercultural misunderstanding. An individualistic culture, which is Norway's, bumps into a collectivistic culture. Different from the Westerners, a lot of Asians uphold collectivism. People are born into extended families or clans which protect them and prioritize others' needs before oneself. These are represented in Indian culture, such as children sleeping with their parents. Many families find comfort and connection, fostering a strong sense of familial closeness. Meanwhile, a mother feeds her child with her hand as a form of belief. In India, they believe that mothers' hands are blessed by God, therefore, they hand fed their children. Moreover, in Indian culture, you can be hand fed throughout your entire life. It's such a big sign of love and respect. Then, the chart that said the husband doesn't help with the chores showed Norway favored femininity over masculinity. In a feminine society, men and women should be modest and caring. There is a balance between family and work. Mr. Chatterjee throughout the movie prioritized work over family. This is contrary to the healthy family standard from the Norwegian government. The cultural difference between the two countries did not deter the Norwegian government from taking a step back while implementing it on an Indian couple. Finally, Debika met the Indian government and asked for their help. The Indian government finally took the initiative to release soup and sushi and reunite Debika with her children. Do you remember what I mentioned before about the fact that Debika learns that the Child Welfare Service is a scam to extort immigrants? Do you ever wonder why Velfred targeted immigrant families to be their victims? This is because there are obvious unequal distributions of power between individuals or groups from different cultural backgrounds. The Velfred had a lot of control over Debika, challenging her parental rights based on cultural misunderstandings. This reflects a power imbalance where government institutions can take away a person's freedom to make their own decisions, especially when cultural differences are misinterpreted. Debika is just an ordinary housewife who loves her children so much. Fate is too cruel for her. She is an immigrant and also a people of color. She is a minority. From the eyes of the Norwegian government, she is nothing more than a plague. This is unfortunate. Norwegian authorities imposed their cultural norms disregarding Indian practices. This means the big strong culture make its rules the main ones, pushing the smaller different cultures aside. The only way she could win is to drag someone who has equal power to the Norwegian government. This reflects an unsuccessful intercultural communication and its consequences. Debika had to go through a lot of trials just to get her children back. The Welfare and Norwegian government didn't even give her pity. If this story was a successful intercultural communication, the 10 weeks investigation by Wilfred is already enough for them to understand Debika's family culture, background, and also behavior. What is the point of monitoring the Chatterjee's family for almost 10 weeks? Even Mrs. Chatterjee has viewed them as a family, but in the end betrayed her trust. Finally, we landed at the final stop. As I said before, this section is about my final thoughts. From my own analysis, I come to the conclusion that this case shows how important it is to respect different cultures and create fair systems in multicultural situations so everyone is treated equally and understood properly. In my opinion, if the parents' culture truly didn't meet nowadays standards of parenting, the government should assist and educate them instead. They should have believed that the parents, especially the immigrants, could improve and adjust themselves to the norms for the sake of their children. So, any unilateral revocation of child custody rights is no longer necessary. And no mother will feel that the culture she has been proud of is being called and labeled as violence in another country.